as the group forded yet another babbling stream, splashing through the icy water as quickly as possible that they might not soak through their leathern boots. Hal heard the shrill call of a bird unfamiliar to his ears. Immediately afterward, William cried out, and Hal whirled around to see that an arrow had sprouted from between the man's shoulder blades as he dropped to his knees, his eyes immediately rolling upward into his head. Dropping to one knee beside him, Joseph already had his musket off his shoulder and had begun loading it when he, too, was struck with an arrow. Unlike William, though, he did not fall to the ground in stillness, but instead dropped his gun and roared in rage as he grabbed the shaft of the arrow where it emerged from the meaty part of his upper arm. Hal threw himself prone and made his way over to Joseph, pulling him down as well, and placed his hand over the injured man's mouth and glared him into silence until he nodded. Taking the partially loaded musket, Hal quickly finished tamping the charge and checked the lock to be sure that it was properly loaded with powder before raising the smooth stock to his cheek. Sighting down the long bore, Hal searched the forest behind them for any hints of movement, but neither saw nor heard anything. After the span of many wild heartbeats, he concluded that the attack was over and permitted himself to believe that they were not all to be scalped in this place. There must have been at least two who attacked, otherwise there would have been no reason for the call he'd heard. However, if there had been a full war party, they would have already charged Hal's tiny command with war axes and clubs, intent on finishing the attack with outright butchery. Reasoning that the attack must now be over, and their assailants fled, he lowered the musket from his shoulder and willed himself to at least the appearance of calmness. Scrabbling over the loose, damp leaves of the forest floor, he reached William's prone form and checked the man's neck for the pulse of life. There was nothing to feel there, though, and Hal sighed deeply as he reached up and closed the man's eyes. He unbuckled and dragged the dead man's pack over to where Joseph was stifling groans of pain. "Be still," Hal hissed, as he tore away the stout fabric of Joseph's shirt from the blood-soaked rip where the arrow had passed through. Hal slid his fingers around to check whether the point of the arrow had penetrated through to the other side, but found no further injury there. Tugging at the arrow, Hal was surprised and gratified when it slid out of the wound cleanly, revealing a hardened wooden tip, rather than the barbed flint head he'd seen on the arrows of the Iroquois he was familiar with. As he cast the arrow aside, he noted that the wound bled profusely, but did not spurt, a good sign. "You were born to be hanged, Joseph. Be still a moment longer, and hold pressure on the wound for a second while I ready a bandage." Joseph gritted his teeth and nodded, reaching up with his good hand to apply pressure. Blood still flowed between his fingers, but it was a sluggish trickle now, already slowing as the damaged flesh began to close up. Hal rummaged through the dead man's pack for a spare shirt, and then pulled out his own knife to cut a white strip from it. "Move your hand now, Joseph. Poor William won't be needing this anymore," he remarked, wadding up a bit of it to serve as a bandage, and then tying the rest over the wound gently but firmly. Joseph looked away from where Hal was physicking his arm and gazed at the dead man's form. He said, suddenly, "We can't leave him here, Sergeant. They'll desecrate his corpse, take trophies and whatnot, maybe even take his scalp to sell to the British." "What tales have you been listening to, Joseph? Do you purpose to carry him all the way back to New Jersey?" "No, we must strip him of anything ourselves that they can make use of, then fly as fast as ever we can in order that his death may be properly avenged." Seeing Joseph's stricken expression, Hal continued, more gently, "I know that he was a friend to you, and I am sorry for the need, but his sacrifice will be for naught if we cannot deliver to the General the intelligence which we purchased at the price of William's life." Joseph took a long, shuddering breath and nodded. "I know we have to, but it still don't seem right to just leave him here. Can we at least give him a Christian burial?" "No, Joseph. The longer we stay here, indeed, the more likely it is that whoever shot the two of you will return with a greater force to destroy us all.